Bellow on the beat.
All right. Good morning, good people. Wow. Welcome, welcome, welcome. What a beautiful day this is, and what a beautiful day this is going to be. Welcome to the Road to a Million show. I'm Daron C. Campbell, the hardest working man in real estate, your real estate mentor. We are here to talk, to stimulate, to grow. We're trying to help you increase, grow your brain, your body, and your bank account. That's the name of the game, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm a real estate guy. This is year number 27 in the real estate game, and I feel like it is my duty, it is my responsibility to educate. It's my job. I feel like I've been behind the curtain, and it's time for me to pull the curtain back and show you what's back there in the world of real estate, in the world of finance, in the world of what some of us feel we've been locked out of or haven't been able to participate in because of one barrier or the other. So that's what this show is all about. This is the Road to a Million. The idea is to help you get some $1 million ideas so that you can break out of the cycle and become prosperous. And it's possible. So many people have done it. So many people do it. Just sometimes you need the formula. Sometimes you need a little help. And so that's what this is all about. That's why we call it the Road to a Million. It's not the snap your fingers and get an instant million. It's not the win the lotto and get $1 million. It's the road to $1 million. And it's like that. It's a road. You got to start somewhere on your journey. and eventually you could get to that $1 million status. I'm telling you, it's possible. I've seen it happen. I've helped people do it, and maybe it's your turn. What do you think? All right, this is Daron Campbell. This is the road to $1 million. I'm the hardest working man in real estate. I'm your real estate mentor. I just adopted you. I am now your real estate mentor. I'm in Rollout Show Studios. This is where they do the Rollout Show with Speedy and friends. They make you laugh all afternoon long, and we are here to kind of expand your thinking. We're here to help you improve your brain, your body, and your bank account. So we'll talk real estate a lot. But the goal is to try to help you become a complete person, a better person, a person with a full life. And I believe you got to have all those aspects covered in order to get there. And so if I can offer you a little nugget to help you get there, to help your life get better, to help you grow, to help you progress, then I may have done my job, right? Okay, so we got a lot to talk about today, but we're going to really touch on a very highly sensitive topic today, and the topic is rent control. Now, the reason that topic is pertinent is because right here in California, where I am, they just passed this sweeping statewide rent control bill, and it has caused all kinds of emotions to light up and be set off, and people are all in their feelings in California. This law is called AB 1482, and it has imposed statewide rent control. So that's a crazy thing. We're going to talk about what it is and what the implications are with you. We're going to field your questions, and hopefully we'll dispel some myths. We'll tell you what's really going on. We'll tell you what it really means. We'll tell you what you ought to be doing in lieu of this thing. The state of New York recently passed a similar law. So if you live in a big city, which most of the population does, then rent control affects you in many cases. And definitely now the entire state of California, definitely now the entire state of New York, and all the other big cities typically have some form of rent control as well. So we are talking about rent control, the big sweeping topic. Nick is telling everybody today it's about rent control. So I'm here in the studio talking to you. I got my tribe over here that always tunes in. That's cousin Eric. That's Steven. That's Angie. That's Tamara. That's Karen. I didn't see who else is on there, but the tribe that's been following me forever is always tuning in, and I'm hopefully you're becoming one of those, and we're growing this brand new audience, and it's kind of like been a viral thing, and we're excited about it because good things are happening, and the Rollout Show is putting us on, and the Road to $1 Million show is taking off. How about that? We're taking off like a rocket ship. And I got my man Nick in the booth there, making sure I sound good and helping me look good. And Marlon's at home with the flu, so we got no help from Marlon today. Feel better, Marlon. And but the show must go on. So Marlon, take some Theraflu, take a nap, and feel better. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. So we're gonna start by talking about some other things, but we're gonna get into rent control. The majority of the show is gonna be about rent control, but let's talk a little bit about the news in general and things that might affect you in your daily life. There's a lot of news out there that is gloom and doom over here, and it's murder over there, and it's a high-speed chase over there. I'm going to encourage you to filter some of that out, okay? Filter out some of that noise, because a lot of that noise is built to distract you. It's not built. I won't say somebody's fabricating the news. What I will say is they put that sensational news in your face, and you tend to get fixated on it and forget what your real mission in life is. Really, you need to be handling your business, ladies and gentlemen. And a lot of that stuff is noise, and it's distraction, and it keeps you from getting on your game. Are you handling your game? Are you improving yourself every day? Are you working on your brain, your body, and your bank account every day? Or are you stuck in front of a TV listening to gloom and doom, terrible news that's discouraging and not helping you grow? I want you to grow. And so hopefully you listen to this show, and any news I tell you about is going to be something that affects your daily life and something that affects the way you can grow yourself, grow your family, grow your legacy, grow your fortune, and that's kind of what our theme is going to be around here. So I'll tell you some news that will probably affect you at the gas pump. Now, I drive an electric car. You guys might need to think about that. But just over the weekend, a major oil refinery and distribution plant in Saudi Arabia got bombed. Okay, and I love that, cousin Eric. You hashtag that. Your cousin Eric. My cousin Eric in Houston is listening. You guys, that's he's been with me the whole time. But anyway, so drones. This is a trip because it kind of like is an interesting statement on the way warfare is being conducted. A drone attack happened in Saudi Arabia at one of the largest oil facilities on planet Earth. The number one oil production refinery distribution center in Saudi Arabia got bombed by drones on Friday, Saturday. They had no defense for it. They had no notice about it. Apparently, these drones can sort of go fly below radar, undetected. Here's the reason it's going to stretch all the way across the ocean and affect you in the next few weeks. That oil production facility is responsible for 6% of the crude oil distributed on planet Earth. Do you hear me? One drone attack shut down production at a facility that controls 6% of the oil on the planet. Okay, now that might not sound scary to you. Here's the thing. They don't know how they got attacked without detection. They don't have a defense for it, which means they're susceptible to many more of these. Now, one production facility that affects 6% of the oil on the planet, that halt in production is going to squeeze production on every other oil producing nation and every other refinery on the planet. Therefore, the supply is going to shrink and the demand is going to go up. And the ripple effect is going to cross the ocean and it's going to come to your backyard and it's going to affect your gas prices in the next few weeks. I mean, this is like, if you needed a crystal ball, here's one for you. Gas prices are going to go up. You watch. Just watch. Let's just do this as a team, as a tribe, as an experiment together. Watch. What if you took a quick snapshot of your favorite gas station's prices every day for the next 30 days, 21 days. Let's do it for 21 days. And let's just watch and see, because a lot of times we go around and we handle our life, and we do our stuff, and we're really not paying attention to the global picture. But that global picture can come and mess with your wallet. And this is one that's going to come and mess with everybody who drives a gas-powered car. It's going to mess with your wallet. Now, me and Tesla aren't going to be that affected by this one. But let me tell you something. Watch your gas prices. Take a quick snapshot with your smartphone of the gas prices at your local gas station every day for the next 3 weeks. And I will be absolutely shocked if you don't watch those prices bounce a little bit every day, almost to the point where you might see 50 cents to $1 in increases in your gas prices at your favorite gas pump over the next 2 to 3 weeks. Is that crazy? That means something that happened on the other side of the world that happened because one nation is ticked off at another nation and they decided to go after them with their drones and hit them. Where do you hit them best? In their pocketbook. They hit them in their pocketbook. They took out their biggest refinery, basically shutting it down. And that war is going on over there. And you think, well, that's way over there. That doesn't bother me. Ladies and gentlemen, that affects you. And I'm going to help you watch how it affects you. Like, what do you drive? You drive to work 20 miles a day, 50 miles a day? You use 1 tank of gas a week, or do you use 2 or 3 tanks of gas a week? If gas goes up, if you're using 20 gallons of gas a week and gas goes up $1, ladies and gentlemen, your expenses just went up. You got to watch these things because everything affects everything else. We live on this planet, and And you think you're unaffected, but you're affected. Trust me. And so I want you to keep an eye on that, because that's going to be a real thing in the news going forward. Okay, I'll give you some a little deeper insight. Oil, the prices of oil, crude oil, on the commodities market is in the $60, $65, $68 range per barrel. I know you might not care about that, but okay, I'm going to tell you how that affects you again as well. $65 a barrel, that's kind of where oil's been kind of playing in that zone for about 10 years. Well, suddenly drone attacks take out 6% of the production. And anything else that affects the oil production could create another spike. Well, $100 per barrel oil is not unheard of. We saw it 10 or 11 years ago when there was big unrest in the Middle East, and hurricanes took out some other oil producing refineries, and we saw $100 per barrel oil. Well, $100 per barrel oil translates to $5.50 gas prices for us. In Europe, it translates to $9 a gallon in oil. So I want you to really, really start paying attention to these things, because I want you to expand your mind a little bit. I want you to use we talk about your brain, your body, and your bank account. This is brain stuff. If you stay a little bit more alert and a little bit more aware, then maybe you can make a few more moves each year that'll help your prosperity. How about that? So I'm going to tell you about news that affects your pocketbook, or affects your longevity, or affects your livelihood. And so that's a bit of news that I think is going to affect all of us in a small way, but it's still a real thing, right? If suddenly your commute gets to be $100 per month more expensive, did you just get affected? I think you did. These are subtle things that affect our bank account, that affect our wallet, that we ought to be cognizant of, so that we can fight against them, so that we can battle them, so that we can be smarter about them. Okay? So that's a big deal. Oil prices, watch gas prices. Oil prices are moving. Watch the price at the pump, ladies and gentlemen. Let's be aware. Let's be aware. Let's be sharp. Okay? We're expanding our brain, our body, and our bank account. That's what the Road to $1 Million show is all about. Hey, I had somebody give me some feedback on the new show the other day, and I thought it was interesting. I thought I'd poll you guys. This friend of mine said, man, your show is really good, but it sounds like you're yelling at me all the time. Sounds like you're scolding us every day on your show. And I said, well, look, I'm not trying to scold you, but I'm just trying to teach you. I'm trying to help you expand your mind. So if you guys think I'm too preachy and I'm yelling at you, then you could let me know. I don't know that means I'll change, but you can feel free to give me some feedback. If you guys want to call in, you want to talk about the price of oil, you want to talk about Daron screaming at you every day, you can call us, 747-888-3082. Feel free to call in and holler at me, 747-888-3082. This is the Road to $1 Million show. I'm Daron C. Campbell, the hardest working man in real estate. I am your real estate mentor. I want to help you grow. I want to help you prosper. I want to help you proliferate in the world of finance, and I want to help you get there. You guys know I'm an income property dude. I love income producing property. I love apartment buildings. I love things that can create some cash flow for you, because I think cash flow can lead you to freedom. And I think we all have a freedom number. I think Nick and I were talking about that the other day, and I challenged people on this show to figure out what your freedom number is. What's your freedom number? Your freedom number is your total monthly overhead and what your life costs you. How much does it cost you to live? What's your rent? What's your mortgage? How much does it cost you to move around? What's your transportation cost? What are the utilities cost in your place? What kind of spending money do you need each month? Add all those together, and your freedom number is that number. If you could get that amount of money coming into your mailbox every month, whether you show up for work or not, you, my friends, are suddenly free. So if my overhead is $8,000 a month and I can collect $8,000 a month without working, suddenly I'm free. Suddenly I'm living like the most affluent people on planet Earth. If I can cover the overhead that makes me happy, the way I want to live, the lifestyle that I want to live, and I can have that amount of money coming into my mailbox or into my bank account, direct deposit every month, suddenly I'm free. See, people don't understand. Everybody thinks like in these shallow terms. I got to win the lottery, or someone's got to let me inherit, $10 million. I wish I could win the Publishers Clearinghouse. No, ladies and gentlemen, the road to a million, the road to freedom is in getting your freedom number covered, whether you show up for work or a job or not. That's where I want to help you go. Let's figure out what your freedom number is. What's your freedom number? How much does it take for you to live the life you want to live comfortably, happily, with a big smile on your face? Write that number down. That's your monthly number. That's your freedom number. If you had that money coming in on autopilot, you, my friends, would be free. So that's the simple way to figure out how can a normal person get from zero to financial freedom. It's a monthly number. It's not a big giant 7 or 8 figure number. It's a monthly number. The smartest people on this planet believe in things that will give them passive income. They invest in those things that will give them passive income, and they grow that passive income until that passive income surpasses their freedom number. Financial freedom is yours that day, ladies and gentlemen. So think about it like that. I just shrunk your problem down to a monthly number. If your overhead, if you can live happily, comfortably for $6,000 a month, then your freedom number is $6,000, and I call it, money on autopilot. If you can get $6,000 coming in your door every month, then you win the game. That's how the wealthiest of the wealthy live. They don't measure how much is sitting in the bank. I guess a lot of us don't know that. A lot of people think, oh, rich people, they're counting their millions in their savings account. They're really not. Most of them are counting, how much cash flow do I have after all my bills are paid? That's really where wealth lives, ladies and gentlemen. I just shrunk it down to this easy equation. That's what the Road to a Million show is all about. I'm trying to teach you. I'm trying to stretch your brain in a direction it might not have gone before. All right. So we talked about oil prices and how that could affect you every day at the pump. We're going to talk about mortgage prices right now. So wait a minute. I created something cool for you guys. Check this out. I created a report just recently, just for you guys, so I could give it to you. It's a giveaway. I'm into giving stuff away. The more I give, the more I seem to get. So I got this report that I just created, and it's called How to Stop Renting and Start Owning. We're going to talk about that in a minute, because we're going to get deep into the new rent control laws and how they affect you and your bottom line and your money. So I got this brand new report called How to Stop Renting and Start Owning, and it's free. And so if you go to followdaroncampbell.com, scroll down and put your information in, I'm going to have Marlon send you my free report about how to stop renting and start owning. See, a lot of us don't even know we could own. A lot of us don't even know that loans exist where you can put zero down. A lot of us don't know that you can still get a mortgage even if your credit's a little bit challenged. There's a way for you to start owning, and I want to help you get there. How to stop renting and start owning. My new report, free for everybody who listens to Road to a Million show, and we'll give it away. So go to followdaroncampbell.com and just put in your information, and Marlon will send you the report. How about that? We're educating you. We're helping you grow. We're trying to help you get better. We're trying to help you get financially free. Okay, so let's talk about those interest rates. So interest rates right now, today, for a 15-year fixed mortgage, that means your payment doesn't change for 15 years. That means that house is paid off in 15 years, and the interest rate, ladies and gentlemen, is 3.24%. I don't know if you heard me. I don't know if you heard me. Nick heard me. His eyes lit up over there. 3.24% interest, ladies and gentlemen. That's almost free money. I don't want to say it's free money, but it's almost free. That's the bank saying to you, I'm going to loan you most, if not all of the money to buy your home, and I'm only going to charge you 3.24% interest on the money. Now, if you could explain to me why you shouldn't take advantage of that, I'll give you something. I'll give you a project. Call up your parents, or call your grandparents, or call your favorite auntie or uncle and ask them what was the interest rate when they bought their first home. they're going to blow your mind. They're going to tell you 7%, 8%, 11%, 18%. The interest rates over the past decades, in the entire 1900s almost, were between 6% and 21%. That was like the averages moved up and up and up and up. And I'm telling you, today, you can borrow money, get a mortgage, get financed at 3.24%. That's why I call it almost free money, ladies and gentlemen, because that's almost free. So listen. Oh, and then I'll tell you more. The 30-year rate, you can get a 30-year fixed mortgage for 3.48%. These are today's interest rates. This is real time. 3.48% for a 30-year fixed mortgage. You got to listen to me. There's opportunity for you to grow financially without you hurting yourself. How many of you realize that you could own a home at those kind of interest rates and probably pay less per month than you're paying in rent? Now, let me put a disclaimer out there. Sometimes it makes more sense for you to rent, depending on your situation or your plan. Sometimes it makes more sense for you to rent. But that's a situation we should talk about, because in many cases, you could be paying less for a mortgage to own a home. And for many people, their home will be the greatest savings account they'll ever have. But if you could own a home for less than you're paying in rent, does that make sense for you to do? Sometimes it does. I mean, in many cases, it does. In many cases, you could be paying yourself instead of paying that other guy's mortgage. Sometimes it doesn't make sense because there's better ways for you to invest that money. There's better uses for that money. And sometimes, if you really plan on an advanced level, it really makes sense for you to put your money out in as many income-producing places as possible. But really, on a basic level, if you don't own anything, if you have no assets, and you're thinking, well, like, how do I get ahead in this world? What if you owned your home instead of rented it? And what if your interest rate was 3.24%? and your payment was lower than the current rent you pay? Would that make sense? Hey, go get my free report. I wrote this report just to give away to you so that you can be a little bit more educated about ownership. Go to followdaroncampbell.com and put in your information at the bottom so we can send you my free report, How to Stop Renting and Start Owning. How to stop renting and start owning. If you don't know anything else about real estate, you should at least know that. So let's do that. Before we go to the break, I'm going to give it to you one more time. There's a few different ways. I'm going to give you a lot of instructions here. I'm going to tell you how to call me. I'm going to tell you how to get my free report. And then when we come back, we're going to start talking about rent control. It's a hot topic in the U.S. right now. It's a hot topic. And I'm going to tell you how it affects you, and I'm going to tell you what it means. One more time. If you want to call me and you want to talk about oil prices, because they're about to get affected, if you want to talk about mortgage interest rates and how to get your first mortgage and how to buy your first home, or if you want to talk about rent control, which is what we're about to get into in the next segment, call me, 747-888-3082. That's 747-888-3082. And if you want to get your free report on how to stop renting and start owning, go to followdaroncampbell.com. We're going to take a short break, and when I get back, we're diving into rent control, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk about it. I'm Daron Campbell. See you in a minute.
True Craig.
Right. All right, all right. My man Nick is on the soundtrack. I love that music. Nick has created all of this original stuff for us, and I'm excited about it. It feels good. I'm in here dancing. I don't know if you guys over on Facebook can hear the music. Everybody online on roadtoamillionshow.com or rolloutshow.com can hear Nick's soundtrack. You should check it out. The man is good. Okay, we're back. This is the roadtoamillionshow.com. I'm Daron Campbell. I'm your real estate mentor. We are learning and growing and trying to get better and trying to get smarter. And so we're talking about things that affect us in the pocketbook. We're talking about things that affect our lives. Now, you guys know that I'm an income property dude. It's like I think all of us should have a goal of not only owning our own home, but maybe even more importantly, owning some income producing property. Because to me, it's all about cash flow. To me, the whole name of the game should be cash flow and how can I get some? And then eventually from there, cash flow, how can I get some and how can I get that cash flow to overtake my monthly expenses and pay for my life? If your cash flow paid for your life, what would that do for you? What if you were free? What if you were actually free to function and operate and work or not if you wanted to? Imagine if you took the next 5 years, let's say you took the next 5 years and said, what I'm going to do, Daron, is I'm going to get my overhead in check. I'm going to get my budget and my overhead in check. And then I am going to start growing my cash flow so that my cash flow eventually outruns my overhead, so that my cash flow is greater than my overhead. If my cash flow is $7,000 and my monthly overhead is $6,000, what have I just done? I just created freedom, ladies and gentlemen. I have created the ultimate freedom. It's my quest. It's my quest to teach you freedom through real estate ownership. And it's not as complicated as you think. It's not as tricky as you think. It's not as what's the word? It's not as mysterious as you think. So I feel like it's my job to pull back the curtain and show you how ownership can change your life and show you how property ownership can change your life and to show you how cash flow is the holy grail. Cash flow, which means passive income. And it's mostly passive income. Almost nothing is truly, totally passive. You got to do something. You got to do your taxes. You got to do the bills. You got to keep an eye on your money. You got to keep an eye on your assets. But for the most part, income producing property can be as close to a passive income stream as most of us will ever get to. But the goal is to get to it, right? Let's get some. All right. So something that is largely, greatly, incredibly affecting people's cash flow, people's ability to get cash flow, people's path to cash flow, thus their road to $1 million, just got affected in a big way in California. And more recently, and a little prior to that, in the state of New York. And in other cities where you might live. It's called rent control. Rent control? What is rent control, Daron? All I know is I pay a bunch of rent every month. Well, rent control is the set of laws that govern how much rents can move or can be adjusted by owners, by landlords. And there are sweeping new rent control laws that just went into effect in California and New York. And the reason these laws, some people feel like these laws need to be implemented is because rents in major cities, San Francisco, New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Dallas, Houston, Miami, rents in places like these, Atlanta, Boston, rents have gotten so high in so many situations and so many instances that the middle class is starting to feel like they're really, really there are really, really limitations on how they can live because rents are so expensive. Now, that'll lead me down this whole path of why you ought to become the owner of some income property as opposed to just the renter of someone else's income property. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But let's talk about rent control right now. Just last Thursday, the state of California's governor signed into law something called AB 1482. AB 1482. Now, this is a hotly contested topic about how to keep controls over rent that tenants pay to landlords in apartment buildings. All right? All right. Now, why is it so heavily debated? We'll talk about that in a second. But this measure is such a hotly debated topic that this was on the ballot last year. There was the rent control. There was a rent control ordinance on the ballot last year that people got to vote on about whether or not to implement statewide rent control. Now, that measure got voted down. The voters said no. Basically, people voted no on rent control. Now, that was really heavily backed by apartment owners, the Apartment Owners Association, a lot of people who are real estate investors and those types. They rallied really hard and they voted no. I mean, a lot of the general population basically voted no as well. The funny thing is politicians, however, really are listening to a lot of the pushback that they've gotten from constituents. And so after the law got basically voted down, just more recently than that, another California senator wrote a bill or wrote a proposal, and the governor just last Thursday signed it into law without the voting population. They didn't even put this to a vote. They didn't even put it to a vote. That's how interestingly political this topic is. Now, a lot of people are saying, now, wait a minute. If the voters spoke and said, no, we don't want this new law, but nevertheless, a legislator wrote a bill anyway, and the governor signed that bill into law anyway, some people are like, well, what's the voting process for if the people voted and they voted no, but the governor decided yes anyway? It's kind of interesting. That's a whole nother political conversation. You know, that was the kind of one that kind of baffled me more than the law itself. It's like, well, if you put the law on the ballot and the people said no, and then another legislator wrote another bill that didn't have to go to the ballot, and the governor just signs and boop, all of a sudden there it is. It's in effect. You kind of wonder, like, do the people have any power? Is the power of the vote really power? Or if it doesn't go the right way, can somebody like a governor just flip it and create his own version of it? Anyway, that's another topic for another day. But let's talk about rent control and how this new law is going to affect everyone who rents. But you know, the funny thing is the other side of the coin I want you to think about, because I preach property ownership. I preach income property ownership. This law affects people who own income property. Wow, let's talk about it. All right. Before I dive in, if you want to call, you want to ask about it, you want to talk about it, I'm taking questions. 747-888-3082. 747-888-3082. We're talking about Bill AB 1482, statewide rent control in the state of California. All right. So let's dig in. Let's talk about this. This is juicy. This is juicy. I know there's a lot of people out there. A lot of people are happy. A lot of people are upset. And it's emotional. The state of California is on an emotional roller coaster right now, ladies and gentlemen. So let's talk about the facts. Okay. The city of Los Angeles has, let's see. There are, I wrote some stats here. 600,000 apartments. This is the city of Los Angeles. There are 600,000 apartments, and they are in 118,000 properties. So it's just the city of LA. So I'm telling you how this affects, you know, look, if there's an average of 3 people in an apartment, that's 1.8 million people. But there's 118,000 rental properties in the city of Los Angeles, and that affects 1,000 apartments, that's units, and that affects about 1.8 million people. Now, this is no joke. One law just shifted the gears on 1.8 million people. Now, what this law states is that, I want you to think about this real carefully. The state just decided that for buildings older than 15 years, that means anything that was built prior to 2004, every rental property is subject to rent control. Now, this is different because the prior line of demarcation was 1978, October 1st of 1978. Anything newer than that didn't have rent control. Everything older than that did have rent control. They just moved the line way forward, and anything built before 2004 is now subject to rent control. Now, what does that mean, Daron? What does rent control really mean? It means that your landlord cannot raise your rent more than the state gets to tell him to in any given year. Okay, so what does that mean? Okay, let's talk about it. No longer can a guy, you live in a building and in a non-rent control building, and your rent is $800, and the landlord decides that the rent ought to be $1,100, and he could give you a 30-day notice, basically, as long as you've been there over 12 months. He could give you a 30-day notice and say, well, I'm raising your rent to $1,100. And you're like, whoa, how can you raise my rent from $800 to $1,100 just like that? Well, the no rent control buildings had that feature. An owner could raise your rent kind of indiscriminately. Now, obviously, he runs the risk of you moving out. He runs the risk of scaring people away with his prices. And so that's kind of the check and the balance. If I raise your rent too much, you're probably going to move. The reason it has leaned in the favor of the landlord for so many years is because in Southern California, we have more demand than we have supply. So the guy who owns the building is kind of in a position of advantage because there are more families and more renters than there are units to rent. What does that do? That allows him to charge more money for his apartment and charge more for you and or raise your rent. So AB 1482 dictates that landlord can no longer raise your rent beyond a number that they say. So what's the number that they say? Here's the formula. CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index, it's typically around 3 or 4% per year. The landlord can raise your rent CPI plus 5%. That's the max. So if CPI, right now CPI, the Consumer Price Index is at about 4%. That now says that 4% plus 5% is the maximum any landlord in the state of California can raise anyone's rent in a given year. Okay, so you might say, oh my God, Daron, that's spectacular. This guy can't raise my rent. If my rent's let's say my rent's $1,000 and the CPI plus 5 is 9%. So that means if I'm paying $1,000 a month, this guy can't raise my rent more than $90 next year. Well, stop and think about that. How much is 9% of your rent? Now, here's the problem. Here's what people argue on either side of this equation. I'm going to give you both arguments. The people who really love rent control will say to you, well, that's fantastic, Daron, because now the evil rich landlord can't raise my rent more than $90. All right, that's an argument, and that's an argument worth listening to. But on the other side of the equation, some people are saying, well, Daron, if the city or the state gets to control how much the owner can raise the rent and they dictate that to him, this guy is going to raise the rent every chance he gets because his hands are tied. But he also knows that his competitor next door is going to have the exact same rent increase. So you see, one might argue that rent control is telling the landlord how much to raise the rent each year, and he knows his competition is going to do the same thing 9 times out of 10 because he's being told what the number is. You see, I believe in free markets. I believe that the free market ought to determine what the rent ought to be, and if you're renting my apartment for $1,000 and there's a way better apartment across the street that you can rent for $900, what do you think is going to happen? 9 times out of 10, you're going to move to that better apartment for less money, and I'm going to lower my number so that I can compete. But if the system, if the state, if somebody else tells me what the rent has to be, and it tells it to all of us owners at the same time, then we're all going to raise our rents the same amount. And basically, in my opinion, it's going to take away your freedom to go shopping for a better deal. Why? Because the state is telling the owners basically what the number is. And to me, that kind of kills competition, and competition is what is in favor of the consumer. I think it's my job to rent you the best apartment at the best price you could possibly get, and I need to be better than my neighbors so that you rent my apartment instead of his. So while on the one hand, people say, Daron, great, I mean, the state is keeping these owners in check. Are they? Or are they encouraging these owners to go ahead and push rents? Here's the other thing. If I know that there's a limit on how much I can raise the rent in any given year, then every year when they tell me here's what it should be, am I ever going to not raise it? Am I ever going to go, nah, we don't need to raise that. We like our tenants and let's not do it. Or was I just encouraged to raise it every chance I get because somebody said you can't raise it when you feel like it. You can only raise it when I tell you. See, to me, that this law is going to have a reverse effect. I think it's going to force landlords to raise the rent every chance they get because they're only going to get one chance. You see, you get one chance a year and the state's going to say, here's the letter, here's how much you can raise it. Guess what the landlords are going to do? They're going to raise it. They're going to raise it every time. That's my opinion. I mean, I know a whole lot of landlords. I've sold a whole lot of apartment buildings to owners. And, you know, there are a lot of owners out there who don't want to raise your rent. They don't want to scare you away. You're a good tenant. They don't want to freak you out. They don't want to break the bank. They don't want to put you in trouble. They just want a full building. But the minute the state and the city step in and start telling that owner how much they can get, how much they can rent for, how much they can raise, suddenly I think they're going to be discouraged from being really like the nice, benevolent landlord. And they're going to get in the business of like, I better max out my money every chance I get because the state is limiting what I could do. You understand? So I just want you to see both sides of the coin, because a lot of people are just automatically like, yeah, there ought to be rent control. Yeah, you ought to keep a limit. Yeah, it's too expensive to live out here. And I grant you that. This is an expensive world. Life is expensive. Rent is crazy. I get that. But putting rent control in place does not necessarily solve the problem. If you disagree with me, call me and we'll talk about it. But I don't think putting the handcuffs on the owner of the building is really the solution to the problem. I want to talk to you about solutions to the problem. And that we're going to get into that in my next segment. But the solution to the problem is not necessarily rent control, ladies and gentlemen. If you got some questions or you want to talk to me about rent control, call me and let's talk about it. 747-888-3082. 747-888-3082. This is Daron Campbell. I'm on the road to $1,000,000show.com. You're listening to me. I'm your real estate mentor. And we're all trying to grow, trying to get better, trying to get smarter. When we come back, I'm going to take some questions about rent control and about how it's affecting some people. And so feel free to call in. I got a few questions lining up right here. We're going to answer them as soon as I get back. We're going to take this short break. It's only going to be about 2 minutes. Come back and talk to me in a minute. Call me. All right. All right. We are back. Looks like my devices are batteries are dying all over the place. Hey, you're still with me. I think I might have just lost my whole Facebook crew over there, but you're here. This is the Road to a Million show. I'm Daron Campbell. I'm your real estate mentor. We're talking about growing. We're talking about prices. We're talking about rent. We're talking about rent control. There's some sweeping rent control laws that have just gone into effect, and it might be affecting you. And that's why it's important for us to talk about what does it mean? What are the implications? You know, I believe in income property. I believe in income property ownership. I believe that, being a landlord is probably the best profession on planet Earth for your financial freedom. And so I'm trying to help people grow to that level. I'm trying to help people get to that point of financial freedom. I think it's out there for all of us. I think a lot of us need to get more intelligent about it. I think a lot of us need to grow our financial wherewithal. And I think income property, ownership of income property could be the ultimate destination. It could be the ultimate place for you to find freedom. And I want you to know more about it. I want you to know all there is to know about becoming financially free. I believe that you can create a cash flow situation in your life that you can find freedom. And so I'm trying to help you on the road to a million. I'm trying to help you find that financial freedom. It's out there. It's out there to be had. A lot of people are enjoying it, and they understand what the cash flow game is all about. They understand what cash flow in life is truly all about. And you could have it too. You could have it too. That's what we're talking about. And so we're digging deep into the things that affect real estate, property values, your ability to own it. I want everybody to own some real estate, and I want you to own it intelligently. And then I want you to start figuring out how to own some income producing property. And then I want to help you figure out how to become financially free through the ownership of income producing property. And then I want you to become ultimately free by having so much cash flow that your entire lifestyle is covered by your income producing property. It's covered by your cash flow. Cash flow is king, ladies and gentlemen. So let's get you to some cash flow. Let's start with step one. Why don't you go get my free report on how to stop renting and start owning? The name of the report is How to Stop Renting and Start Owning. By who? It's by me. It's by Daron Campbell, the hardest working man in real estate. That report is all about how you can get out of the rental game and start becoming financially astute and financially secure, and hopefully grow to the point where you are financially free. Wouldn't that be great? What if you could accomplish your freedom number? What if you could have your lifestyle paid for with your cash flow? Isn't that brilliant? What a great idea. Oh my God. Who ever thought of that? You mean my life could be paid for by income that just came in because I owned some stuff? That's what I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen. It's out there. I think that's the rule of the day. I think that's what we all ought to be thinking about. Can we think about freedom? Let's think about freedom. How can you become free? Start with my report. Go to followdaroncampbell.com and I'm going to have my team send you How to Stop Renting and Start Owning. It's a great report because it's the basics. It's about how to go from wherever you are today to the point where you could own some real estate. And then we'll go to advanced real estate ownership, which is income producing property that cash flows. And then we'll go to advanced, which is the ownership of apartment buildings. Man, I teach this course that I created called Apartment Millionaire. And it's all about how to become wealthy owning apartment buildings. And it's a beautiful thing. But we got to start somewhere. Let's start somewhere. Let's start with how to stop renting and start owning. And you go to followdaroncampbell.com, plug in your information. We'll send you the free report. It's free. It's easy. I think that sometimes I give it away for free because sometimes I got to force people to consume the information. I'm trying to force you to start thinking about ownership. I think that's a good thing. So we'll dig into that. So you grab that report, and it'll tell you exactly what to do to start your journey on the road to a million, on the road to freedom, on the road to ownership. Let's go. Log in and get that. All right, here we go. We are talking about rent control, and we're talking about how rent control affects you, how it affects your life, how it's affecting everything you do. The state of New York and the state of California just passed these huge, sweeping rent control laws, and it's affecting millions of people. Just this one rent control law that California passed last Thursday. Last Thursday, this is real time, people. Last Thursday, they passed a law that is affecting 1.8 million residents of the city of Los Angeles. Not to mention how many people in the city of San Francisco it affected, and the city of San Diego it affected. I mean, and the city of Sacramento. The state passed the law. And the crazy thing is, the voters voted down the law last November. The governor signed it into law himself last Thursday. Anybody find that strange? Who's in charge? Who's running things? The governor? Is the governor the dictator of the state of California, or is he the governor? Does he work for you, or does he do whatever the heck he wants? I don't know. I'm not getting political. I don't talk about religion or politics, except maybe on Fridays. But the fact is, the governor decided we need this law, and so he made it happen. Regardless of what you voted for last November, you might have voted for it, you might have voted against it. The governor decided you need it, so you got it. So we'll talk about that on another day. It's kind of like how somebody can win the popular election and lose the presidency. I don't know about our politics sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, but we'll talk about that another time, Daron. Stay away from religion and politics. Okay, so let's talk about rent control. Let's get back on this rent control thing. So now I got a few questions here. So somebody just asked, this is Tony who sent in a question and said, what if I've lived in my apartment for 15 years? What can the landlord do to me? Okay, here's the thing. The rent control law affects any unit where someone has resided in that unit for a year or more. Because you see, once your year is up and your lease expires, if you were in a non-rent control apartment, the landlord could then move the rents at any rate he wanted to. This is in the state of California. If you were in a non-rent controlled building. Now let me tell you how the line got moved, Tony. The line got moved from October 1 of 1978, and it just got moved to 15 years ago, and it's a moving number now. Okay, so let me explain what that means. It used to be, if your building was built before October of 1978, that building was subject to rent control, meaning the city could tell the landlord, hey, you can only raise rents this year 3%, 4%. If the unit was vacant, then the landlord could raise the rent to whatever he wanted. But as long as you were in that unit, there was a ceiling on what he could increase. Now so for those buildings, it was usually 3 or 4%, and because that was based on what the consumer price index said for that year. Now, flash forward to last Thursday. The new law says every building in the state of California that is older than 15 years. That means it's older than 15 years to the day. So if the building got its certificate of occupancy, today is September 17th. So 15 years ago today would be September 17th, 2004, right? So if the building was built prior to September 17th, 2004, it is subject to rent control. If the building was built after that date, it's exempt from rent control. So if you're in one of those shiny brand new buildings all over town, then your landlord does not have to listen to this law. Okay? Now that's important because you might live in an old building, and so that your building is subject to this new law. You might have just moved into a brand new building, and I want to warn you, you're not protected by this law. Now, some people say that's a great thing. Some people say that's a terrible thing. Depends on which side of this argument you're on. But remember this, the rule is 15 years old. Now, if you're going to go out looking for a place to live this weekend, the year that that building was built is very important. So that should be one of your leading questions when you go and look at an application for rent. Because let me tell you an example. Let me give you a story about how somebody got a little bit caught and in their mind burned. I have a friend who took a lease in a building, right? This is prior to the law. This is a few months ago. Okay, so this person rented an apartment in a building that was non-rent control. Non-rent control, okay? Now, this person rented that unit a little over a year ago. They originally rented that unit a little over a year ago. What happened on her 1-year anniversary was her landlord sent her a notice increasing her rent by almost $200. $200 a month. Could you handle that kind of rent increase? Her rent got jacked up by $200 a month, and it basically forced her to move out of that apartment because she could no longer afford the rent. So that's a big deal, right? The minute her 1-year lease was up, the landlord was free to raise her rent by $200. Now, here's the thing. She didn't know when she leased the apartment, she didn't know that it was a non-rent control building. Why didn't she know? She never asked. You know why? Because they said to her, we're going to lease you this apartment. And I think the number was $1,800 a month. So a year ago when she leased the apartment, she goes, hey, okay, I can afford $1,800 a month. Cool, no problem. She signs a 1-year lease. At the end of the 1 year, the lease is up, right? Right. When the lease is up, what happens? Well, it's a non-rent controlled building. So what did the landlord do? He sent her a rent increase notice for almost $200. She calls me up, freaking out. Daron, how can this guy do this? He can't raise my rent $200. I go, well, the fact is, you're in a non-rent controlled building. Your 1-year lease just expired, and he can actually raise your rent almost $200. She freaked out. She flipped out. It affected her life because what did she have to do? She had to move to a cheaper apartment. Now, that's why rent control matters, and that's why it affects you. That's why when you go looking for that new apartment this weekend, you gotta pay attention to the year that the property was constructed, the year that it was built. And really what that means is when you ask somebody what year was it built, what you're really asking, let me tell you what you're really asking. It's important. You're really asking, when did the building get its certificate of occupancy? You got to write that down. Certificate of occupancy. Because I've seen a situation where the manager of the building who was renting you the apartment told somebody the wrong year built of a building. Now, I don't know who's responsible for giving the accurate information or if he could be held liable for giving the wrong year. But the fact is, a builder might have started building a building in 2010, but if the building isn't finished until 2012, that's when the certificate of occupancy gets issued. That means that's the date people can start moving in. That's the effective year built of that building. Now, this is important because it's affecting your life right now. If the building you're going to move in the state of California is 15 years old today or older, it is covered by this new law. If it's newer than that, it's not covered. I got a phone going crazy somewhere, but it's not covered, ladies and gentlemen. Do you understand? The year built is crucial. It's critical. You might get a 1-year lease right now for $1,500 and you think, okay, I'm cool. I'm set. I can afford $1,500. But if you're in a non-rent control building 1 year from today, when that lease expires, they could raise your rent to $1,800, $1,900, $2,000 if they want to, if they think the market will bear that. So please be cautious, be careful, be vigilant when you decide, hey, I want to live in that building right there, you need to know when the certificate of occupancy was issued so that you now know whether that's a rent controlled building or not. Wow, that's heavy. And you know what? There's a new burden that's going to go on the tenants. Because what if you move into a building that is 13 years old right now and you stay there for 2 or 3 or 4 years? What happens in 2 years? The building becomes 15 years old and suddenly it's under rent control. Remember, it's a 15-year-old building that becomes a rent-controlled building. It's a little bit crazy because the previous law said if it was built after October 1st of 1978 and the date didn't move. Today, the new law says the date moves every day, which means 15 years ago today. And then tomorrow it'll be 15 years ago tomorrow. And then the bar keeps moving. It's a little bit crazy because now it's making you think, ladies and gentlemen, you better think real carefully about the building you move into and about the age of that building and how that's going to affect the landlord's ability to raise your rent or not. So, Tony, what I'm telling you is, in answer to your question, is if you've lived in that building for 15 years and that building is older than 15 years, obviously, that is now a rent-controlled building. You might say, great, my rent will never go up, blah, blah, blah. No, not the case. Remember what the law says. The new law says that the landlord can only raise your rent by the consumer price index. Right now it's 4% plus 5%. That means he can raise your rent by 9% next year. 9%. Everybody do the math. What is 9% more than you pay today? Take your rent, multiply it by 0.09, and that's how much your rent can go up. Let's just do the baby math. If you're paying $1,000 in rent right now, and now we have a new law that says your landlord can raise your rent by 9%, that's $90. Can you afford $90 more in rent next year? Think about it. I happen to think the rent control law is going to make landlords raise your rent. You might disagree. If you disagree, call me and argue with me about it. 747-888-3082. 747-888-3082. If you got some issues or questions or concerns about rent control, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. It's a hot topic. California, New York, Chicago, Miami, Dallas, Houston, Trenton, New Jersey. This is affecting people everywhere, you guys, and it's about supply and demand. And so, wow, yeah, I got a lot of people chiming in with some thoughts here. We're gonna let's address them. Okay, so Daron, what about single family homes? Okay, here's the deal. This thing gets trickier and trickier, ladies and gentlemen. Typically, single family homes are not included in rent control laws because they're single family homes. They don't tend to be, rental units. You want to know the twist they just put on this? Okay. If a corporation, an LLC, or an S Corp, an LLC, or a C Corp own the house, it's subject to rent control laws. Whoa, wait a minute. Explain that to me, Daron. All right. So in many of my teachings, I tell you form an LLC to own your rental property. Well, if that LLC owns rental houses, those houses are treated just like apartments and they're subject to rent control laws. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people go, well, I own houses, so I don't have to deal with rent control. Not correct. Not correct. So what this did was there's a lot of big corporations and REITs. I don't know if you guys know what a REIT is. A REIT it's an acronym for Real Estate Investment Trust. REIT, R-E-I-T. But what that is just a corporation. A bunch of people invested together. They formed a corporation and they started buying a bunch of real estate and they're making money on that real estate. Well, REITs are like a corporation, an LLC, an S Corp. These entities have gone out and bought lots of houses in the past, and the law just turned those houses pretty much into rent control apartments, basically. They all now have to follow this rent control rule. A lot of people invested in rental houses because you could raise the rent anytime you want, any amount you want. Not anymore, ladies and gentlemen. AB 1482 is changing the game completely. I, again, am opposed to it because I think it tells landlords, hey, it's a new year, go raise the rent. Oh, and by the way, you can raise it 9% if you want to. That's what I think it does. And I think that's a problem for me. I don't believe in it. So you can give me your opinion. I got a buddy who called in. This is I think I'm saying this right. Yay boy or your boy. Oh, that's your boy 07. It's not yay boy. Okay, your boy. Your boy 07 says rent control in the state of California is a bad idea. A bad idea. Well, I tend to agree with your boy here. I believe rent control by the state is a bad idea. I don't think it helps us. Number one, I don't even think it helps the renter. It's going to put a lid on how much the owner can raise your rent, but I really think it's notification to raise your rent. I think it's an encouragement to raise the rent. Hey, Mr. Landlord, we're not going to let you ever raise the rent on your schedule, so we're going to give you our schedule. So if you want to raise the rent, you get to do it. So 9% is the number this year. Now, what if it's 10% the next year? What if it's 11% the next year? I got a tricky thing for you. Here's another thing. Let's stretch your brain in another direction. The percentage that the state tells you they can raise the rent is based on the consumer price index. The consumer price index, ladies and gentlemen, is a number that's dictated by an economy, right? It's all about the economy. Well, how about this? What if we go into a recession? And what if we get inflation during that recession? And what if the CPI goes to 7%? The new law says we can raise your rent by the CPI index plus 5. What if the CPI is 7% next year, and then you add 5 to that, and he can raise your rent by 12%? Oh, and he's going to get a notice in the mail. He's going to get a notice in the mail from the state of California saying, hey, Mr. Landlord, by the way, it's rent control day. You can only raise your rents. You can only raise the rents by 12%. And then guess what you're going to get in your mailbox? You are going to get a rent increase notice for 12% increase. Now, is that a good thing for you or is that a bad thing? I got a caller who wants to talk about it, who's ready to give me some thoughts. Go ahead. Who am I talking to here?
Hey, it's Reed from Cleveland.
What's up, Reed?
What's going on with you? Hey, I got a quick question for you right quick. In Ohio, we don't have rent control because we don't have spiraling prices, for rental properties and things of that sort of nature. But I do have a quick question for you right quick since you're a guru, D. I have an idea, and I got this idea from some white folks that go to my congregation. Mm-hmm. They went ahead and they bought a piece of property first, land, nothing on it, no structure, nothing or anything. They bought a travel trailer, put the travel trailer on their property. After 3 or 4 years living in the travel trailer, they saved up enough bread and built their home. Is that a wise way to get a home? And if I do it that way, how would I get a loan, or how does a loan for just a piece of land, nothing on it, work?
Okay, so what they did was they bought the piece of land. They said, you know what, let's stack our chips. So we're gonna put this mobile home on the land until we accumulate enough money to borrow and build. Okay, correct. So it's an intelligent move because anything that helps you save money is an intelligent move. But the way construction works is when you want to go to a bank and say, hey, I want to build my dream house and I need a loan to do it, they're going to first say, okay, well, where's the land? Who's got the land? How are you going to do the land part of this? So if you already own that piece of land and the bank thinks that piece of land is valuable or is decent, then they're going to say to you, okay, you throw in the land, we'll throw in the money to build the house, and we're partners now. And they will loan you the money to build the house on that land, provided you can figure out the plans and the permits and all the rules and the laws and the zoning and all that. You got to go through all of that. And when you go to the bank with that plan, they go, okay, if you build that house, we understand you're going to build that house. It'll cost you $200,000 to build the house, and when you're done, the house plus the land is going to be worth $412,000. That's a good bet. We'll be your partner. And so
Okay. Well,
you got to
I
bring.
guess my question. I
Go
guess
ahead.
my question is, in order to obtain the land first, because here in Ohio, like around where like LeBron and stuff like that live at, land is relatively cheap. You can get a you can get like a half an acre of land for like something like 12 grand.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if I would, is it better to go and just whop them out to 12, or should I go to the bank and say, listen, I want to get this piece of land for 12? How much would I have to put down, and what would be the avenues that I would have to go down in order to get that going?
Well, again, okay, if you can buy that piece of land for 12 grand, there are many banks who don't love the land business because there's nothing on that land they could take back and sell really fast if you don't pay. So
Okay.
getting a loan on raw land is is a big equation for the bank because they say, okay, well let me just look at your ability to pay us back if you don't pay us, or our ability to get our money back if you don't pay us, because they don't love land because there's nothing on it they can just snatch and sell real fast. If you had a house on that land, you say, hey, help me finance this house, they go, okay, if you don't pay, we're gonna just take that property back and we're gonna throw it on the market, we're gonna sell that house, and boom, we're gone. The land is not as sexy to them, so sometimes they won't finance that land at all. So sometimes you need to own that land and say, hey, bank, I own this land.
Uh huh.
I'll contribute the land. You loan me the money to build the house. Let's go. So I think it might be easier if you shell out the 12 grand, own the land, and go to the
Uh
bank and
huh.
say, hey, I own this land. Now I want to build. Loan me some money.
Well, what about areas like in California? Because it seems like every time I turn on the national news, land is like at an all-time high in as far as in value.
Yeah, and land is expensive as all get out here in California. However, the banks still don't love loaning on vacant land. They'll do it if you got a great plan. If you got a great plan for what you're going to build and how valuable that thing's going to be, and you're credit worthy, and you got the income to service that loan. Because don't forget, while that land is vacant, there is no money coming from it. So you got to have the money to support the payments on it until something real happens. It's just a piece of dirt right now. And so if you don't have a strong net worth or a strong ability to repay, they don't see that land as really being much of anything. And they don't want to repossess the land and to go try to sell an empty piece of land. It becomes way more desirable to the bank if you got a plan to build on it. And if
So
you
I guess what you're saying, it sounds like that idea what I came up with. That's a cool idea, but it's more sexier for the bank if I was a developer
yep,
and I was getting into it.
you got it, because then you got a track record. They know what you build, they like what you
Okay.
build, and they know how much what you build is worth. Now here's what I'll suggest you do, my friend.
What's that?
Instead of, like, if you had the ability to go buy that land for 12 grand,
Okay.
instead I would rather you go find a very reasonably priced piece of property, take that
Uh,
same 12 grand, buy that property, go to the bank and say, look, I'm going to buy that property. I got 12 grand down, and I want you
uh,
guys to loan me the rest of the money to buy the property and a little bit of money to fix the property up. That's a better
uh.
bet, because immediately you have an asset that's worth something, and the bank likes that equation way better than an empty piece of land.
Now that does that go for any area that you like, whether that's urban or rural?
Well,
Will they
okay.
fall in love with that idea?
Well, let's just be real about it. Urban is sexier than rural, because here's what a bank thinks. What's our
Uh huh.
worst case scenario? If
Uh
you
huh.
don't pay, what can we do? What they want to do is they want to be able to take it back if they need to and sell it immediately if they have to.
Uh
And
huh.
the more urban the more rural you get, the less desirable that is, because there's not a big audience trying to buy it. But
Really?
if you go and buy something decent and it's adjacent to the good area where LeBron and those folks live, and it's next to that, and
Uh huh.
they know it's marketable all the time, they're gonna be like, yeah,
Uh huh.
we'll loan you 95% on that deal, because we know we could flip out of that anytime if it goes wrong.
Okay. All right.
Make
All right, thanks
sense?
a lot, brother. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for calling. So you see, you guys, that's a very intelligent question my man's asking because he wants to know where's the smartest way to go. And look, the more desirable the area, the better. However, vacant land is not the easiest thing for a bank to fall in love with, even if it's in a great area. I mean, Beverly Hills vacant land is gold, but the banks don't love to loan you money on it because there's nothing there. There's no improvements. Banks want to loan on improvements, and unless you're a builder with experience, they really want to loan on something that's proven. And if it's not a proven thing, they're going to be a little bit reluctant about loaning you that money. So that was a great question, man. I appreciate that. You guys call in, give me some more. Give me some more. I love it. I love the questions. Let's get educated together. We can learn all this together, don't you think? All right. So back to my man, your boy '07. Now we talked about rent control, and I think your boy is right. He says rent control by a state is a bad idea. If that's your statement, your boy '07, then I'm agreeing with you because I don't think it's a great idea. Here's the other thing. Let me tell you what else rent control does. Rent control kind of suppresses the free market. Rent control says, hey, Mr. Landlord, this is all I'm going to let you charge, and I'm not going to let you go up any higher than this ceiling. You know what that does? That discourages the landlord from spending money freely on keeping the property impeccable. I want that property to be impeccable. I want my real estate and I want my landlord to feel like he needs to keep that building as impeccable as humanly possible, but rent control sometimes discourages him from spending money on the building. I don't know if you guys remember this, those of you out here in California, but for a long time, Santa Monica and West Hollywood had these really tough, almost evil rent control laws that really were harmful to the landlord. They were so harmful that the landlords decided, I'm not spending any money on that property. I don't care what the tenant says because my rent can't go any higher than $500. Even when somebody moved out, they wouldn't let you rent the property for more than $500. And so what that is that's called vacancy control. So vacancy control says, and that's what they have in New York, which is really, in my opinion, a horrible thing. It means even when a tenant moves out, the landlord still can't raise the rent to the market. And to me, that's just like, it's almost communist to me. I don't understand it. I don't get it. It's terrible. And what it does is it discourages the landlord from making his property great. He doesn't want to spend any money on the property because they won't let him go get the rent that he deserves. So if it sounds like I'm on the side of the landlord, I kind of am because I want you guys to become landlord. I want you to be the landlord. And I think that the free market ought to run so that the landlord is incentivized to fix up the building. Look, if I run my building in a crappy fashion, then you deserve to move and go find a better place. The guy who's taking care of his building, and I don't care what neighborhood it's in, anywhere from A to Z, Beverly Hills to Hollywood to Chicago to New Jersey to the west side to the east side, I don't care. A landlord that takes care of his real estate deserves to get the most the market will bear. He deserves the best tenants. He deserves the best rent. And the guy that's not taking care of his property down the street, the guy that's letting his property go, is letting his property run down, he deserves to have to chase tenants and fight for tenants and lose tenants because he's not taking care of it. But what I don't think the system ought to do is restrict his ability to get rent no matter how he keeps the property. You see, we're kind of trying to have it both ways. You want to limit the rent that a landlord can charge, and then you want to cap his income, but you also want him to keep the property in great shape. Well, let me tell you something. If all I can get for your apartment is $500, but it's really worth $900 in the open market, but the state won't let me charge $900, then what's my incentive to paint the building and landscape the building and clean the pool and make it beautiful for you? My incentive is low. I want you guys to understand that. The reason you need to know this is because I want you to be the landlord. Call me and talk about it if you want to talk about it. I'm at 747-888-3082. My good friend is probably saying I'm yelling at you guys again. I'm preaching. Daron, you're screaming at us again. I'm just trying to drive the point home, ladies and gentlemen. We want to be landlord, But even if you're not landlord yet, I want you to understand the implications of rent control and what that law does and what those things are doing to change the shape of things, to change the landscape. You got to be informed. You got to be informed. So let's be informed. Let's learn this together. We're going to go to a break. And when we come back, we're going to pick it back up. We got more questions. We got a lot of people asking questions going, what the heck is going on with this rent control stuff? Teach me, Daron. Teach me. This is the Road to a Million show. I'm Daron C. Campbell, the hardest working man in real estate. I'm your real estate mentor. I'm here to teach you, grow you. Let's work on our brain, our bodies, and our bank account every day. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Okay. We are back. This is the Road to a Million show. I'm Daron C. Campbell, the hardest working man in real estate. I am your real estate mentor. And we're talking all things real estate, but we're also talking at all things, all things. We're trying to improve your brain, your body, and your bank account. That's our holistic approach to freedom. I want to help you get free. I want to help you live free. I want to help you. You got to win in all departments. So we touch on a little bit of all these things. And my man Nick, he's the producer of the show, just reminded me, Daron, you said you're going to give everybody a brain, a body, and a bank account tip every show. So our very last thing we're going to do is I'm going to give you a little bit of tidbit on real life stuff that helps you in all three departments. We'll start that in about 11 minutes as we wrap up the show. But check this out. Let's finish up on this rent control topic. Rent control is a real thing. It affects you. It affects everything you do if you are a renter. So I want you to be conscious of it. There are many states that don't have rent control laws, but man, oh man, more and more of the big cities, as life gets more expensive, that are implementing rent control laws. Now, rent control laws are why are they necessary? You know why they're necessary, ladies and gentlemen? Because so many people don't own real estate. There are so many renters. Let me give you an example. Right here in the city of Los Angeles, where I am, the affordability rate for homes is 26.4% last time I saw it. What does that mean? Daron, what does that mean? That means only 26% of the people who live in this town can afford to own a home. Oh my God. That means almost 75% of the people can't afford a home and they rent. And that's why rent control is such a big topic, because most of the people are renters. Now, do you think you're going to get ahead by being like most of the people or by being different from the people? I want to encourage you to be different. I want to encourage you to grow in a different way. I want to encourage you to create your financial freedom by being and doing something different than the masses. Why don't you do something different than the 75%? Why don't we work on ownership for you? Why don't you go and get my free report? And somebody's calling me. Stop it. Free report called How to Stop Renting and How to Start Owning. How to start. All right, tongue tied here. How to stop renting and start owning. How to stop renting and start owning. Go to followdaroncampbell.com and get this free report. I'm giving it away. It took me years to figure out some of these tricks of the trade, and I'm sharing them with you for free just for hanging out on the road to a million show. I want to teach you some stuff that'll help you grow. Follow DaronCampbell.com. And I don't know if Nick and Marlon put that on the screen, but DaronCampbell.com is DARON, and Campbell is CAMPBELL. So follow DaronCampbell.com. Go in there, put in your information. Let us send you the report, how to stop renting and start owning. Let's start owning. This rent control stuff is serious. I mean, how much has your rent gone up over the last 5 years? Check this out. Rents in the state of California have gone up an average of a little over 9% every year for 11 straight years. If you do the math, that's over 100% in 10 years. Think about that. Think about that. Has your rent doubled? People are struggling because the rent has doubled, but has your income doubled? How many people can say their income doubled in 10 years? Not a lot of people. Not a lot of people, particularly if you're punching a time clock and working for somebody. Your income probably, odds are, has not doubled in the last 10 years, but your rent, odds are, has. Whoa, that's sobering stuff. What do we do to break the cycle? Let's learn how to own instead of rent. Why don't we start that? So let's talk about rent control, how it's affecting everybody. Rent control in the state of California is capping how much a landlord can raise your rent. I think it's encouraging the landlord to raise your rent. On that anniversary, he is going to raise your rent because the state's going to say, hey, Mr. Landlord, you can only raise this rent by CPI, Consumer Price Index, plus 5%. So they're going to send him a letter every year saying, go ahead, you can raise the rent 9%. Do the math. How much of an increase is that? And then in 12 months, guess what they're going to tell him again? Well, you're restricted, Mr. Landlord. You can only raise it another 9%. And then what's going to happen after that? What if the CPI goes to 7% and 7 plus 5 is 12? Oh, well, guess you can only raise it 12% this year. So think about it. Do the math. 9% this year, 9% next year, 12% the year after that. In 3 short years, your rent will have gone up by 30%. Ladies and gentlemen, is that freaking you out a little bit? Does that scare you just a little bit? Why don't we get a little bit more control? Why don't we try to take a little bit more control of our situation and get more intelligent about it? Why don't we get smarter about our money? Why don't we watch the Road to a Million show every Tuesday and Thursday and get a little bit more intelligent? Let's get a little bit more astute. Let's learn more about how to control our money, how to protect our money, how to save our money, how to grow our money, how to give our money legs, how to get some cash flow, how to proliferate. What? Proliferate? Where'd you get that word? I'm just a kid from Dorsey High. You guys see I'm repping Dorsey High here. Dorsey High. That's my high school, and I gotta put on for Dorsey. But you know, the fact is, I'm just a regular guy like you, and just from Dorsey High, right here in the inner city of Los Angeles. But guess what? At some point, I decided I needed to get some financial intelligence. I needed to learn how to take control of my money so that somebody else wasn't controlling my money. And the thing is, where did it all land? Where did it all boil? Where did it all culminate? One word: ownership. One word: ownership. You need to own some businesses. You need to own some cash flow real estate. You need to be the controller of your own destiny, and ownership is where that lives, ladies and gentlemen. The way you're going to get to some great cash flow is you're going to own some income producing property. I'm going to show you how to do it. So go get the free report and let's get you started. How to start owning, how to stop renting and start owning. Go to followDaronCampbell.com and let's get you that report. Let's get you started. And if you need to, we're going to show you how to get a consultation from me about how to get you on that road. What if I took you by the hand and tutored you and mentored you and got you from wherever you are today to ownership? Would that be valuable? What if I really acted like your real estate mentor? That's what I call myself. I'm your real estate mentor. What if I helped you get from renter to owner? Would that make you feel good? Would that get you on the road to $1 million? That's where we should go. So let's talk about rent control, and then we're gonna move on. I'm gonna give you some tips, some quick tips, just to touch on all the topics that we're supposed to touch on to grow a little bit more. So rent control is capped, but rent control is also kind of a prompt. So if there are many landlords, I know thousands of apartment building owners, that's who I sell property to all the time. And many of them like a fully occupied building, and they simply don't want anybody to move. So they don't raise rents every year. You might experience that. Have you ever had like a really good landlord who just was cool, took care of the building? You paid a fair rent. He happily collected that rent, and everything stayed quiet. Well, rent control is really kind of a disruptor of that pattern, that system, because rent control is going to tell him, hey, Mr. Landlord, now I'm going to tell you, you can't raise the rent this much. And then in turn, I'm going to tell you how much you can raise that rent every year. And that might, if you think about it, that actually might wake your landlord up and remind him that he could raise your rent. And you probably won't go anywhere because they were telling the guy across the street the same thing. You see, I believe in the free market. You keep a great building, you'll keep a full building. You ask for a fair rent, people will pay you a fair rent. The government gets involved and the game changes. The government's going to dictate to that landlord. Now he's mad. And then that landlord's going to pass that anger on to you by raising that rent every time the government tells him, well, here's your once a year chance to raise that rent. Does that make sense? See, I think the rule works in reverse. These legislators, the governor in particular right now, thinks he's protecting you as a renter by capping what your landlord could charge you. But I would tell you this: if you're a great tenant in my building and I'm trying to run a great building, I don't want any vacancies, so I might not even raise your rent at the end of a year. I might just say, hey, Angie, you're a great tenant. Just stay. You keep paying, I keep providing. And that's fair. But when the government sticks its nose in our business and starts telling us how we ought to think and how we ought to charge, then the free market is gone. They killed the free market, and we're going to get back to those times when places like Santa Monica and West Hollywood had rundown buildings. Why? Because the government was telling the landlord he couldn't raise the rents. And so the landlord goes, well, if I can't raise the rent, then I can't paint the building. And if I can't raise the rent, then I can't fix your plumbing. And if I can't raise the rent, then I got no incentive to give you new windows. You see how it works in reverse sometimes? So sometimes the government in our business isn't really helping anybody. Nobody is better off at the end of this heavy-handed, government-driven concept. Now, look, the government serves a lot of great purposes. I just think they ought to stay out of our business because the free market and capitalism is really what has given this country its ability to become great. If I give you a crappy product, guess what? You won't buy my product. If I deliver an ugly, stinky, rat-infested apartment building, you won't rent there. And I don't deserve your rent. But if I give you this pristine, impeccable, beautifully landscaped place to live, and I charge you a fair rent, you will pay it with a smile on your face, won't you? You see, of course, there's some people that abuse the system. Of course, there's some people that take unfair advantage of things. But in the regular world, for most of us, you guys, me, we're trying to do the right thing. And the right thing is you deliver a good product and a good customer will comply. There's all those other people that'll do little silly things, but the most of us want to pay a fair rent for a decent place to live. And if the government stays out of our way, in my opinion, we're all better off. So your boy '07, I agree with you. It's eliminating he says it's rent control is eliminating a renter's ability to shop around. Not only is it doing that, it's eliminating the incentive for the landlord to improve the property. And I think that's the biggest price that gets paid when you stick rent control into people's faces. All right. So now we're down to the last segment of the show, and I would be remiss if I were preaching this brain, this body, and this bank account stuff, and I didn't give you some tips in all departments. So I want to show you, I want to give you something every day, every time I'm on, to help you with all three departments, right? All right, so let's get into that. As people call me right in the middle of the show. Come on, quiet there, people. And so let's do something on each topic. Let's start with your brain. The brain part of it is, you guys know I'm a voracious reader. I'm addicted to books and reading. I read books. I listen to books. I buy books like crazy. And I got a great one for you. And I get no benefit from endorsing these books other than I think they'll help you grow your brain. I think this is important. So today's book that I'm going to recommend is called Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. Now, T. Harv, I've met him a few times. I've taken his seminars a few times. But T. Harv would not know who I am if you mention my name to him. But whether he knows it or not, or likes it or not, he's one of my mentors because he has given some simple, brilliant wisdom. And that book is like the Bible of practical thinking about how to grow your brain, your money, and all that. So read Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. It's in my top 5, you guys. I'm gonna give you all my top 5, and we'll go through them every time. Every time we're on, I'm gonna give you another recommendation. But this is how we're gonna work on our brain. Let's read. Hey, look, and if you don't want to read, somebody just told me yesterday that you got to make videos because people don't want to read anymore. Okay, cool. Get it on Audible. Get an audio book. These books are on Audible. Any book I tell you about is probably going to be available on audible.com as well as amazon.com. And you can buy the book or you can listen to the book. It's just as effective. Fine. You don't want to read? Listen to the book. Listen to 20 minutes before you go to bed. Read 20 pages before you go to bed. And I'm telling you, you're going to wake up 6 months from now way more intelligent than you started. So, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv. Let's talk about your body. That was your brain. Let's talk about your body. I'm going to give you a basic one. You're going to be like, Daron, everybody knows that. You know it, but do you do it? Ladies and gentlemen, drinking water. Drinking water. A doctor told me a little while ago, Daron, try to drink 100 ounces of water a day. Man, that's a lot of water. Try to drink, take a 24-ounce bottle everywhere you go and drink 4 of those a day. Drink it 4 times a day. 100 ounces of water. It is incredible the benefits that your body will see from this water. You wrestling with your weight. Water will help you regulate your weight and lose your weight. Guess what? Fat comes out through your urine. I know that might be too much information, but we excrete fat by urinating, and you drink more water, you're going to go to the bathroom more, and you're going to lose fat. Let me tell you what else it does. Water lubricates your joints. You got achy joints, you got achy knees, you got creaky bones. It's your joints that are having the problem, and water is the lubricant for that. Did you know that water is the delivery system for oxygen through your body? You didn't know that, right? Water delivers oxygen. What else does water do? It boosts your skin elasticity. So you're prettier if you drink more water. You're a little bit more handsome if you drink a little bit more water. Your skin's a little more moist if you drink more water. Check this out. You didn't know this, and you don't see this every day. Water cushions the brain, the spinal cord, and other sensitive tissues. Ladies and gentlemen, you got to drink water. It's like lifeblood. It's so important. It regulates your body temperature. Are you always on fire? You know, I go on stage or I do these shows and I'm like burning up all the time. Well, drink more water and it regulates your body temperature. You won't sweat as much. Your body will stay at an equilibrium. So water, ladies and gentlemen, 100 ounces of water a day, and you will start to see the most incredible changes in your physicality, your energy, your vitality. Drink more water. Okay, so I just told you about your brain, T. Harv Ekker's book. I just told you about your body. Drink some water, drink some more water. Matter of fact, as soon as we're done, go get another glass of water. And now we're going to talk about your bank account. So your brain, your body, and your bank account. I decided that today I should tell you that as you try to stack your chips, as you try to save money, I think you ought to look for opportunities to save money at a slightly higher rate than normal. You know, most banks are paying near nothing in interest. So stacking money in a bank is really not the most advantageous thing. But until you get money to go and buy some assets that give you cash flow, you need to be saving money, right? So I'm going to give you a couple of places where the savings rate is actually higher, disproportionately higher than in other places. So write this down. There's a bank called CIT Bank. Now, it's a member of the FDIC, so it's fully insured and all of that. But they're paying a savings rate right now of 2.2%. Now, that doesn't sound like any money. I know. But check and see what your bank is paying. You might be making like 0.6% to save money in your bank. 2.2% is 4 times that amount, ladies and gentlemen. There's also an online banking system, and it's owned by Goldman Sachs, so it's fully safe and funded. And it's called Marcus by Goldman Sachs. It's a savings, it's an online savings account, and Goldman Sachs sponsors this online bank, and they're paying 2% on your money. And now there was once a day when we used to get, much more interest in our savings accounts, and those days are kind of gone. But this is 2% is real money, ladies and gentlemen. So if you think about it, if you're stacking your cash somewhere, you might as well stack it someplace where they're paying a fair interest rate. So you check out those 2 banks, or go into your bank and say, what are you guys paying for CDs? What are you guys paying for mutuals? Get a better rate so your money's not just sitting there doing nothing. You should be stacking cash so you can buy some assets. But to help you stack your cash, you got to put it someplace where they're paying a little bit more interest. Take 20 minutes and do a little homework and put your money in a place where somebody's giving you a little bit more for it. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. And then the final bank account tip I'm going to give you is, look, we all use credit cards, right? Or at least most of us do. And I want you to be careful about your credit card debt. But if you're going to use a credit card, why don't you strategically use a credit card? Why don't you look at credit cards that actually give you cash back for spending money? Now think about this. Now my opinion is you shouldn't buy anything you can't afford. But if you can afford something and you can put it on your credit card and then pay it off at the end of the month, then that's actually a good use of credit. Now, if you're going to use credit, let me tell you this. Why don't you get a credit card that gives you money back on the money you spend? So let's just use an example. Say, hey, Darren, how much are you going to spend on your credit card this year? Well, let's just say for gasoline. Well, I drive an electric car, but let's just say for clothes or food or what have you, I'm going to spend $10,000 this year. Well, I could spend $10,000 on a credit card that gives me nothing back, or I could get a cash back card that gives me money back on all purchases. I'm not going to go buy something I wouldn't otherwise buy, but I am going to buy the stuff that I buy. And if I can get a credit card that will pay me back for using it, then why not do that? So check this out. HSBC, that's a bank, HSBC, they have a cash rewards MasterCard. Now listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. They will give you back 1.5% cash on all purchases. Are you hearing me? All purchases. So, Darren, what are you talking about? All purchases. That means if I go and spend my $10,000 this year, they're going to give me back 1.5% of that in cash. It's just a gift. Here's your money back, Darren. Here's 1.5% of your dollars back. That's a gift. Now, if you're going to use a credit card, why not use one that's giving the money back? How about that? I'll give you one other one. U.S. Bank has a Visa signature card that will let you have back $550 in the first year. Are you hearing me? They're going to give you back $550 just for using the card. How many other people like handing out $550 gifts? Ladies and gentlemen, use a card that's paying you back. I mean, they've got this tiered system that pays you back $550 in your first year. They're going to give you a $150 bonus after spending $500 in eligible purchases. And then it'll give you 5% cash back on your first $2,000 in combined purchases. You guys, that's just money they're giving back to you just for spending the money on things you would otherwise spend. If you got that card and you simply said, okay, I'm going to go spend $100 on groceries today, but instead of using cash, I'm going to use this card. I'm going to put the $100 on the card, and at the end of the year, all my grocery purchases are going to be done. I'm going to pay the cash at the end of the month anyway. I'm going to pay them off, but they're going to give me back $550 of the dollars at the end of the year. That's free money. Now, look, a lot of us are lazy and we don't feel like doing the homework. I'm doing the homework for you. I just gave you 2 credit cards you could apply for. Replace your no benefit high interest credit card with a card that's going to pay you back. HSBC Cash Rewards MasterCard, 1.5% back on all purchases. Do the math. And then U.S. Bank has a Cash Plus Visa signature card that's going to give you back $550 on purchases you would have already made. Don't go out and buy a new pair of Louboutins that you couldn't afford in the first place. Go out and buy the stuff you already would buy and have somebody give you money back because you bought it. I'm talking groceries. I'm talking gas. I'm talking about the stuff you already buy. Why don't you have somebody help pay for it? Get a rebate from one of these credit card companies. It's time that we turn the system around and started making it work for us instead of us making other people rich on everything we buy. We pay for stuff. We pay retail for it. We pay for it on a credit card. The credit card company charges us 18.5%. We got to quit getting raped in every department, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for some financial intelligence. It's time. Hey, now I do sound like I'm yelling at you, huh? My friend was right. I'm preaching. I'm yelling at you. I don't mean to do that. I just want you to get a little bit more intelligent, get a little smarter about the way you use your money. I'm going to start bringing some money experts on this show, and I'm going to have them share their secrets for how they're beating the system, how they're winning the game. It just takes this much thought and this much intelligence. And I'm going to pull the curtain back on a lot of things that nobody taught you in school. I'm going to pull the curtain back on a lot of situations, and it's some secrets that other folks might not want you to know. I'm going to tell them all to you. That's what we're here for. That's what the Road to a Million is all about. I'm Daron Campbell. I'm the hardest working man in real estate. I'm also kind of knowledgeable about a few little tricks and a few little things that the rest of the world might not have taught you about, or that you might not have learned at the dinner table. We're going to try to grow your brain, your body, and your bank account in a positive way. What if you got better in all those departments by this much every week? What would your life look like next year? 12 months from now, what would it look like? What if right now you just wrote down a couple of goals? How am I going to get better? Let's make it 3 goals. How am I going to get better with my brain, my body, and my bank account over the next year while listening to Daron rant on this show and yell at us like he does so well? How about that? I like the idea. It's been a great show, you guys. I appreciate you for hanging out with me. I'm Daron Campbell. This is the Road to a Million show. I'm Daron Campbell, your real estate mentor. I am loving this show. I'm loving you guys participating the way you do. I'm going to see all of you at the top. Make it a great day, everybody. Peace.